Hello, everyone. Welcome to NiCHE Conversations. I'm a little bit under the weather today, but we're here and we're going to be talking to Verena Winiwarter about knitting and community and fundraising for environmental history, which we're doing right now at NiCHE. And Verena is always so committed to our community, and I'm really excited to get to chat with her a little bit about this initiative that she started with with NiCHE, which is the International Consortium of Environmental History Organizations. Verena is here, so I'm going to invite her in. There we go. Let's see here. Accept. There we go.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a few tries. Hello, Verena. How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm a bit sick, but I'm here.
Oh, super. I'm at home because I'm still positive with the COVID virus, but
Nice.
I'm no longer really badly sick, which is the good news.
That's good. I've been testing negative, but this is my fourth virus of the month because I have a toddler, I think. So just rolling with it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, but toddlers are the best in just getting you every virus that's around.
Yes, they are. Learning the hard way this month. But welcome to NiCHE Conversations. I'm Jessica DeWitt, one of the editors here at the network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I am joined by Verena Winiwarter. Do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm an environmental historian from Austria, and for a long time we did research on parts of the Austrian Danube. And I've also been doing a lot of research over the course of my life on the environmental history of soils and knowledge about soils. And in recent years, I have become more and more interested into the history of what I would call the remainders of the Cold War. And it's called toxic legacies. So that's not a particularly refreshing subject, I have to say. And I used to be the president of the European Society for Environmental History. I was in the executive board of ASEH, because before there was an ESCH, the only thing you could do to join the network of environmental historians was actually to join ASCH. We had quite a big international turnout there. And then I became one of the founding members of ICEHO, the International Consortium for Environmental History Organizations, and I also had the honor to serve as their president for a while.
Yes.
So, and all these years I've been organizing one conference after the other.
Yes. And I think I met you originally through the Sustainable Farm Systems Project, which was my PhD supervisor's brainchild. And so I think we met maybe a decade ago at the last World Congress. We had a meeting. That's wild that was a decade ago. But and full disclosure for everyone, I'm also part of ICEHO or ICEHO, some people say. I'm on the media and communications team. So, and today we are talking a bit about Verena's work with them. And last week we published a bit for our fundraising month on Verena's fundraising initiatives, and it's called Dyed in the Wool, Knitting as a Labor of Love and Fundraising for ICEHO. So we're going to be talking about that today a little bit. And first up, I wanted to just check in with you and learn more about your personal relationship to the art of knitwear, and knitting. And How do you feel about it personally?
Well, I mean, for those of the listeners and that haven't seen the piece, I was writing about it, about my fundraising efforts for ICHO by means of collecting donations in turn for self-knitted, basically socks, and then we diversified a bit, and so we also had mittens and hats and stuff and shawls.
Yeah.
And this is why you're asking about me and knitting. And when I knew that I was going to have this conversation, I looked up my first photograph of a sock, and that is not older than 2011.
Wow.
Because in 2009 we had the first ever World Congress for Environmental History, and it was a great success. But we learned how extremely difficult it is to find money to pay people travel grants. It was just impossible. You could get money for anything, including kinds of, catering was easier to get than funds for young scholars from economically disadvantaged countries.
Wow.
So I started knitting, and I have to say, I was the worst knitter that you can imagine at school. I'm so old that I still had to learn knitting at school, and I positively hated it. The one thing my mother always got this, totally entangled, mushy, yucky ball of something, which I brought home from school. Then she disentangled it, knitted the 20 rows that I was going to do as homework, and then off I went. And during the school hour, I managed to mess it up completely again. So I was given up as totally hopeless by my mom. And then my daughter started knitting a sock. And I looked at her and I thought, well, if she can do it, I definitely also have to be able to do it. And I bought wool and I started to knit a sock. Now, my son was kind enough to actually wear this sock, but it wasn't, I would say it was a prototype kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I've never considered it an art. I've always considered it a handicraft. Because I mean, there are art knitters out there, and I totally respect them, and I'm a pretty basic knitter. Yeah, I'm not doing Fair Isle or these things when you have 4 different colors all meshed together. That's too much of me. But I've considerably advanced over time, and I think what you can see here, if I manage to show it, is an already pretty complex kind of hexagonal shawl, which is in the making. You can see somewhere out there, if I pull it here is the end with the needles on.
Awesome.
So I've been doing this kind of thing. So I've learned a lot over the years. And what I think is, I'm always tempted to do things that are useful, because you're using resources and you're also using your time. So it should be something that contributes to your clothing sovereignty, or it's a great gift, but it should be something that can be used and will give pleasure to people by being used. So I was never into knitting, these things that you put into your drawers or on your shelves and that gather dust. But it's a handicraft, and it has taught me a lot over time. What I've learned is that you really learn respect for the material. I mean, give yourself a bad wool and you're going to have a bad time knitting. Give yourself a good wool and you're going to have a good time knitting. And if you do the wrong, if you read these instructions and then you think, but I'm not going to do this in wool, I'm going to do this in cotton, and then you end up with something which wasn't worth your time. So respecting the material has been a great lesson. And the other great lesson is that it's a lesson about sustainability. I mean, I need like 10 hours for a pair of socks. And if anybody were to pay that money seriously, that would mean that everybody has 2 pairs of socks at home and not more.
Yes.
Which wouldn't be a bad idea entirely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because we do have too much stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. We all do have way too much stuff. And I think that these lessons in practical sustainability would not have been possible otherwise. And that's why I encourage everybody to pick up some kind of handicraft, be it knitting, be it crochet, be it weaving, because it teaches you so much about the value of handwork and how it's way easier to buy yourself a stash of wool that is bigger than you will ever be able to knit, than to do responsible choices in what you buy and what you knit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that point. That's I like that idea of like working physically with a material and kind of like how that opens up like, oh, this is how the world works and how we could be doing things. And I tried to be a knitter in my undergrad, so 15 plus years ago now. And I bought all the things and I bought the books and I finished one scarf, which I still wear to this day, and I gave it up. And I did, that's something I've done a lot with like different crafts. I've just never found something that really clicked for me. But I do mend my clothes, which people find interesting. I mend all of my clothes. Like every hole gets mended, yeah. So I guess that's my way of putting a little bit of sustainability into the world.
Have you come across visible mending?
Yes, I have, and it's so beautiful and crafty. See, I just don't have, like, that's just not how I express my creativity. Like, I can do it, but I don't enjoy it. But I want to enjoy it, which is why I've cycled through so many different crafts and handiworks. But anyways,
So
I digress.
There's a learning curve and an enjoyment curve, and they don't go parallel. Yeah. I think
that's true.
For the first few socks, I needed I needed to know that they were good for something to be able to do them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then it became second nature. And I mean, everybody who knows me and who's seen me at any of those conferences has seen me knitting. Yeah. Because my fingers won't actually accept being kept still if there's a conference going on.
Yes. I appreciate that too. And that's one thing, when people know that I mend, they assume A, that I'm good at it, and B, that I enjoy it. And neither of those things are true. But I think it's like any other chore, like I have a responsibility to fix items, right? Anyways.
Yeah, and I do mending, of course, because but there's also a sustainability lesson in this. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you spend 10 hours on a pair of socks, yeah, spending half an hour on mending a heel or a toe makes immediate sense. If you spend like 2 minutes at the supermarket to buy a pair of socks, spending half an hour to fix them doesn't register the same way in your brain. Yeah. So I think that we can all learn from this in terms of, it teaches you humbleness to some extent, I think. So also, and I can only assure you that there is no perfection. And I think just because we're all scholars and we get this, this needs to be perfect till the very, very last footnotes, very last period, and that doesn't have to be in italics, it should be in, in bold. So I think giving yourself the leeway to do something which is as good as you can, but it's far from perfect, is both giving you more freedom and it humbles you. And I think it's character building.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that connects a lot to fundraising, because we're fundraising at NiCHE right now and we're not doing very well, but we try, and ISO is always trying, right? So how did you end up, taking knitting and bringing it to this fundraising initiative and using it to raise funds for student travel, etc.?
Well, I think it was the idea that it was so difficult to go and knock at doors and say, could you please give us like $1,000 for this and that? Mm-hmm. And people were so, they were not welcoming. Yeah. And then we said, okay, this is a community. This is a community effort, and we're just going to try and see if we can, A, get books by authors, mm-hmm. preferably signed copies, and we will put them in the book exhibit, and there will be a few pairs of socks, as many as I can knit, because at the beginning I wasn't very fast, as an eye catcher and as an additional mm-hmm. item to draw people's attention and to be able to sort of be different. Yeah. And it turned out that people loved these socks. I mean, I had a customer coming, and I think I can share his name, he wouldn't mind. Peter Coates came to me at ESCH Bristol with a pair of socks that he'd bought conferences ago and asked me if I could mend them because he loved them so much. Yeah. So over time, I mean, I didn't stop until I had to because it was such a community building effort, and it brought people together. People were manning the table. They signed up to do the selling, or the collecting of donations. It was also a great way of announcing where the next conference would be. Eunice Nodari from Brazil came to, I think she came to ASCH and to ESCH, and she talked to people and told them how absolutely great Florianopolis would be. She was right. It was fantastic. Yeah. And so I think we also attracted attention, and there were so many positive things coming together that it seemed to be the right thing at the right time. And what I really hope, Jessica, is that there are so many people out there in this community who are crafters of some kind. And if they could all donate craft, we could still have a craft table, even if it's not just my knitting that furnishes it. But before we leave this conversation, I want to share with you an idea that I've had about the NiCHE fundraising. But I don't know if I've answered your question.
You have. No, yeah, you've definitely answered it. And I think that's true. It definitely stands out. People know about it, right? They know about your socks. It's kind of famous. And Jante and I put out the catalog before ESCH this summer, and people were all like, the buzz started even before the conference, right? So people are looking forward to it, and it's I love the idea of community building. I've always been very dedicated to community building in this space. So yeah, go ahead. What's your idea?
Well, the idea is the following. I've spent the last evening doing first this, and I think you can see it. This is the blue NiCHE maple leaf, and I've superimposed it with a peace sign. And then, although this doesn't look as perfect as I would like it to look, and it's still rolling because it hasn't been pressed yet, I've tried a better version of it, and I hope that you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the peace sign, I think, is more visible, and the blue NiCHE is still there. And I was thinking, I mean, it takes me some time to do this, but I can do it. Apparently, I can do it. This is proven technology.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not experimental. I can even do a better peace sign than the one that you're seeing now, because I know that I messed up this one here where it should be yellow and it's blue. But that's what you do. You mess up.
Yeah.
But I could do fingerless gloves. So like, these pulse warmers, where you would have you basically would have this on the top of your wrist.
Yeah.
And all the rest would simply be yellow or blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can actually, because we should all save energy, yeah, you could have these at your computer and wear them because your fingers are free. It just goes up to here. Yeah. And if I made 3 of these and you gave them to particularly good donors, then you could perhaps fundraise a bit more. I mean, you should ask for a minimum donation of $250 because this is going to be quite a lot of work.
Yes.
But that would be, I promise that this would be the most exclusive giveaway that you'd ever have for a donation.
I love that. I love it. Okay, let's try it. We can try it out. I can tell the rest of my fundraising crew about it. Okay, I like it.
And I think I can make 3 of them, but I can't do more because I need to do 6 because everybody has 2 hands.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I think you should actually have 2 of them.
I love it. Thank you. That's such a neat idea. Cool. Yeah, we'll follow up with that later.
And I think, that's kind of where I'm going, is I'm going towards craftivism. And craftivism means craft with activism. And I think that at a time when there is so much violence all around us, niche for peace, I mean, there should be a niche for peace.
I love that. That's beautiful. Yes. Okay. Well, let's wrap up our conversation with just a little people talk so lovingly of your commitment to the environmental history community. And I wondered if you thought there's something special about our global community of scholars that's a bit different from other fields, or if we just think we're special.
No, I think everybody thinks that they're special, but I have 3 indicators why I think we're really special.
Yes.
I think the first ASCH conference to which I went is in ancient history. That was Baltimore, and I think it was in 1997 or 1999, something like that. And there were like 2 or 3 elderly people with a tie, but they very apparently didn't care much about their tie. It was like hanging loose, and there was this. I mean, this was a conference. I came there as a young scholar from Austria. I knew nobody, and when I got home after a few days, I had talked to Susan Flatter, I talked to Don Hughes, I talked to John McNeil, I'd cracked jokes with Doug Wiener. I mean, these were all people like way over the top from me. These were the guys that wrote the books, yeah, and they were just wonderfully warm and welcoming, and they were genuinely interested in what I was doing, genuinely. And I have been to other communities. I've been around quite a while, and I started out as an environmental chemistry major. Yeah? So I was at natural science conferences, and they're also laid back, these guys. They're not economists. But this warmth and this feeling of togetherness is definitely something which is an indicator for me that we are somewhat and somehow special. And the other thing is that there is no other community where there are so many scholars who are genuinely interacting with the natural world. These are hikers and, I don't know, canoers and sailors, and think about Nancy Langston, who has turned into somebody who makes this absolutely fantastic art now. I mean, I'm totally in awe about what she's doing, but that's also, I think, this intensive connection to nature makes us special among the humanities. Other historians don't have that, and I think that's also why people eventually cherish what I'm knitting, because it is also somewhat natural. And the third, I think, is that there is this marginalization issue. I mean, we're not mainstream, and we're also, politically speaking, not mainstream. These are not the historians of progress telling you that progress is good. And so I think that because we are taking a critical stance towards the relationships between humans and nature, and this critical stance is a shared commitment to a better future. And I think that makes us special.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
and that's why it's well worth giving, you know, to this community.
Yeah, I definitely have always viewed my scholarship as a form of activism, and because it's
you're right. I mean, there's also scholar activists. I mean,
yes,
I will never ever forget Richard White giving the plenary. I think it was the lunch talk where you invited. That's something that ASCH did really well. They invited plenary speakers who were not scholars, but somewhere out there. And he went up to the podium and he started, and his first words were, "When I first met our speaker of today, he was in jail." And this was kind of, what? And it turned out he was an indigenous environmental activist who'd been jailed. And for Richard White to knowing this person, for the AACH community for inviting him to speak and listening to him and engaging with this person, I think that's that's not something that I see in any other community. So we should, by all means, preserve our community and make it grow and thrive, because I think we're really important.
Yeah, I agree. Wow, this was such a nice conversation. Thank you for joining me today, Verena. This is wonderful.
Thank you, Jessica, and I wish you very well with the next 6 or 7 infections of your toddler. It's an interaction with the natural world.
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay. And thank you so much for having me. It was great fun. Thank you.
Yes, it was wonderful. Okay, take care.
Take
Bye.
care.